On this episode of Beyond the Stats, with the deadline to sign a long-term deal, what does this mean for teams in the NFL? We'll make predictions as the NHL playoffs unfold. But first, what is going on in Washington?
This is Beyond the Stats with Zach and Tanner.
So, Zach, a lot has been going on with Washington lately. Obviously, the big stuff were the name changes and then their logo.
Right.
It was even fairly recent that Madden 21 had actually completely removed the logo and the name. But recently, and it's a touchy subject, but, it has been reported that there have been some former Washington employees who have made alleged sexual misconduct allegations. Zach, you can give us a little bit more about it or tell us what this means for Washington. Again, kind of a touchy subject, but still kind of important to talk about nonetheless.
Yeah. So Washington Post earlier this week, Thursday, late Thursday, after 5 p.m. So pretty late on Thursday, they dropped an article that had been talked about coming in the next two days. First heard reports about it on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I mean it's bad. just to be frank, it's bad. Like so in the article, 15 different women gave either one of them used their name, the other 14 remained anonymous in giving testimonies and giving accounts of sexual misconduct in the workplace over the last 13-14 years, and like the toxicity of the workplace in Washington. And a few things have happened because of that. 2 executives were fired, actually. The 2 executives named in the Washington Post article, and then the play-by-play announcer for the Washington football team also resigned. He was also named in the article. So that's 3 people gone. They hired an attorney to come in and check the conduct. But I mean, Tanner, it's bad. It was bad. There was nothing good in that article that was said about Washington. I mean, the amount of workplace harassment and catcalling at a minimum there's just no place for that in any workplace, to be completely frank with you, Tanner. And it's bad, and things are going to change because things have to change. But what does what does that mean for Dan Snyder as the owner? What does that mean for the NFL? Because the NFL is doing investigations, doing an investigation into what is going on based off that article, and teams are, they're doing internal investigations. So there's a lot of things going on right now to figure out what exactly all actually happened. And I mean, the Washington Post did a lot of vetting, and I don't think they write this article if it's hearsay, because you can't write articles with hearsay in especially a place like a Washington Post. So there's enough evidence that's been vetted for them to say we can write this article. But I mean, they still have to do investigations to make sure to really start handing down suspensions or fines, or all the way up to Dan Snyder being forced to sell the team. I mean, it's bad.
And Zach, you said it best in terms of there's no place for that. Not just in the NFL, not just in any sport, but pretty much anywhere. There's no, place for that. And I mean,
nowhere.
You mentioned it. I mentioned this before. For Washington, they're already kind of in a deep hole, and this is only dug deeper. I really don't know. What's going to be fascinating is when the actual season starts, depending on when they get their name, where this goes from here. If I mean, it might be to the point where maybe Washington doesn't have a team. I mean, it might be a far stretch, and it seems like it, but there's just been so much going on that it seems like that has now opened up a possibility. And, I first saw this, I looked over it again last night. And then when it was first shared this week, it was like, so much has just unfolded for Washington. It seems like in such a short amount of time, too. This obviously happened back kind of in the earlier to later 2010s, 2013, around the time. But again, it's just so upsetting to see this all unfold. And, so much for Washington, team that has kind of always been either middle of the pack or even not very good in the NFL. Then they find out that they have to change their name and their team logo. And then, of course, that just so much has unfolded. It's like a tower just starting to crumble down. That it's really unfortunate for this franchise. But, at some point, that kind of stuff is going to catch up with you. And again, I'm just really fascinated to see where this goes. And if Washington keeps their team and it goes into this upcoming NFL season, how fans are going to react to it, how other people are. Again, I am really interested to see what happens once the actual season comes up.
I want to be completely frank. I think Dan Snyder needs to sell the team, and I'm not, and I think the NFL should force him to sell the team, to be completely honest, because between refusing to change the name in 2013, between the article that came out in 2018 in the New York Times about them taking their cheerleaders and forcing them to, take topless photos while people watched, and forced 9 of them to basically be escorts for some paid clients, and then all this that came out, and there's just no way he should still be the owner of this football team. I don't think the NFL in good conscience can do it. I mean, They also have precedent. The former Carolina Panthers owner, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden, but they forced him to sell it. He basically was forced to sell the team when things came out about him. And whether Dan Snyder wasn't named in these things, but he's still the head, and he still hires these people, and he still is in charge of the culture. So at the end of the day, it falls on him to a certain extent. So I don't think he should still be an NFL owner.
Well, Zach, it will be, again, as I've said multiple times, interesting to see how this all unfolds and where this goes. And, we'll just see. Maybe we'll get more information. Maybe we won't. We'll just have to wait and see. But right now, Washington really, again, the hole that they're already in, they've dug themselves in a deeper hole. When we come back, we're going to talk about with the deadline to sign long-term deal. What does that mean for certain teams in the NFL? We'll talk about that coming up. Once again, I'm Tanner Camp with Zachariah Begley, and this is Beyond the Stats.
Here on Beyond the Stats, Zachariah Begley, joined by the one and only Tanner Camp. We're talking about the NFL franchise tag and what's going on since the deadline that passed this past Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Tanner, just looking at kind of the lay of the land of some of the bigger names that have gone in the franchise tag. Obviously, Dak Prescott did not reach to a long-term deal with the Cowboys, which has been going on for almost a year and a half now. It feels like
it's longer though. Honestly,
yeah. It feels like they've been in contract talks since his rookie year or something. I mean, not exactly accurate. So he's playing on the franchise tag this year. Somehow, the Chiefs pulled it off and got Chris Jones off of the franchise tag because he said he wouldn't play if they didn't. If he didn't get a long-term deal, but he got a 4-year, $85 million deal. I think $60 million guaranteed. And then the other big name that's going on with the franchise tag is Yannick Ngakoue for the Jaguars because he's saying he's not going to play for them, which means that he's technically still on the team, but hasn't signed the franchise tag, won't sign the franchise tag, will probably get traded at some point. I mean, he's young and good, and it would be hard for him not to play, to be completely honest. Yeah, so that's kind of what's going on in that world, just laying the land a little bit. Tanner, let's start with Derek. Let's start with Derrick Henry. What are your thoughts?
No, you're spot on the money. I was going to sign for those, who don't remember, Derrick Henry, he signed his franchise tag back in April, and he agreed to a long-term contract just ahead. I mean, just ahead of that, 4 years, $50 million. Right. I mean, when we think about the Titans' postseason run and the fact that they were very close to beating the Chiefs, of course, went on to win the Super Bowl. I mean, Derrick Henry to me is I will probably say he might not be the fastest halfback, but I would probably argue he might be the strongest in the NFL. At least he's up there.
I don't even think there's a might be. I think he is. I mean, let's be honest. Good old King Henry.
His performance. I mean, he's still fairly young. Been in the Titans a while. Has been very, very successful with them. But I look back to that performance that they had back against the Patriots, and I cannot get over how well he performed. And again, he really didn't, speed-wise, it wasn't really anything flashy, but just his strength. I mean, it's just insane to see when he has that ball. I mean, he tucks it into him, and he is making sure no one is stripping this football from me. And I will not say he single-handedly led the Titans to that win, because obviously I think Ryan Tannehill was another big part. But Derrick Henry, legit, if they got past the Chiefs, they actually had a really good chance to win a Super Bowl. Obviously, we don't know because the 49ers defense was fantastic. But Derrick Henry, I think, is another big name. But so the Titans were smart in getting him because he's going to be another centerpiece into their offensive plan. So smart decision by the Titans, and they're going to have King Henry for more years.
I just talking about Derrick Henry. I mean, led the league in rushing last year. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he led the league in rushing last year. But also, arguably the best 3-game stretch in NFL playoff history by running back.
Definitely,
I would. Yeah. I in my memory, I cannot remember at least the best of the last 4 or 5 years. Easily the best of the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, he led them through the playoffs as much as he put the team on his back as much as Adrian Peterson did when he ran for 2,000 yards in 2012. It was that level of carrying a team. To be completely honest, that's what Derrick Henry did this past year. I mean, as in 2012, Adrian Peterson literally won the MVP because he literally was the entire Vikings offense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To be completely honest, Derrick Henry was the entire Titans offense for those 3 for their run to the AFC Championship game. And Ryan Tannehill should be shaking his hand because Ryan Tannehill got a $100 million contract off of the back of Derrick Henry going over 100 yards 3 games in a row and literally carrying the team to the AFC Championship game.
Absolutely. That makes complete sense. When Derrick Henry's doing well, Ryan Tannehill goes well. It was a surprising combination, more so just that they worked so well. It was a little scary, to be honest.
Yeah. I
also want to look back on I think another big name that was mentioned. I mean, you said Chris Jones,
right?
That's big. I mean, Kansas City, of course, the big name in sports right now is probably Patrick Mahomes and the deal he signed. But, that Kansas City, all around, was a great team. And Chris Jones was a big part of that. I think that's them getting that deal, especially, as you mentioned, that it really wasn't, they were not sure where he was going to go, if he was even going to stay with the Chiefs. But a huge, huge plus for that. So I'm like you, the 4-year deal is a big plus side for the Chiefs, not just obviously on the defensive end, but on the offense, because as you know, the defense can help fuel that. So I think Chris Jones is another big name probably in this entire list.
Yeah, I don't know how they pulled it off, to be honest. After signing Patrick Mahomes to the biggest deal in sports history, they find a way to pull it off and get Chris Jones in there at 4 years, $85 million. Chris Jones is the second best defensive tackle in football behind Aaron Donald. No one is better than Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's probably the best defensive player in football, but Chris Jones is the second best D tackle and was a big part of their Super Bowl run. Honestly, without Chris Jones, I don't know how they win the Super Bowl. I mean, they might, like his I don't know if they win the Super Bowl without Chris Jones, but and they got him locked up, but it's going to be hard for the Chiefs in the next couple of years. They're going to lose players.
But they want to, but I think part of it is they want to build, even if it's just for, like you said, this 4-year stretch, they're ready to start building. I mean, Mahomes said it best. He's ready to start a dynasty for the Chiefs, and deals like this, you got to have to start somewhere. And these deals are going to be important. But yeah,
it's going to be tough. Looking at Dak Prescott, I mean, didn't get the long-term deal. There's been lots of rumors. Apparently, he wants a 4-year deal. The Cowboys want to lock him up to a longer deal. So I mean, he's going to play on the franchise tag. Does this mean he isn't a Cowboy not by the next upcoming season? I think it's possible.
I for some reason with Dak Prescott, this is a weird take, but he seems like he works with the Cowboys, but it also seems like there will be a time like he's so like on a thread, so borderline, like at any moment he's gonna be. You know what? It's so weird with his situation, and then of course the question comes: if he's not with the Cowboys, where does he go? Like in terms of teams that would fit for him, or that he would fit for their play style.
I mean, maybe the Raiders. I don't know why you would go to the Raiders, but maybe the Raiders sign him. The Bears might actually make a lot of sense.
Bears would actually
make a lot of sense.
With Dak, if he finds a way to stay with the Cowboys, great. If not, I just hope, because he's still got a lot of potential. He's done some really good things for the Cowboys, but by the end of the day, if the deal can't be made, then that's unfortunately how it works out.
Yeah, and I don't think the Cowboys are trying terribly hard to sign him, to be completely honest. So I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, just looking at the last one, Yannick Ngakoue. What is that? I mean, he's not going to play for the Jaguars this coming year. Who trades for him, though? I mean, the Vikings, he's been rumored to possibly get traded to the Vikings, but I don't know who the Vikings are going to give up. I could see Bill Belichick coming in at the last moment and sending like a 5th-round pick for him, to be completely honest. I guess maybe the Rams would make some sense. Maybe the Chiefs, because they're trying to win the Super Bowl, so they're going and getting another pass rusher. But it's hard to say what's going to happen next, and where do we go from here?
No, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes with players like this, it just doesn't work out. Either they're not happy. I mean, we've seen this all the time in all sports. They perform really well for your city, but they're just not happy, or they just don't agree to the deal. And again, I think the big part with this, as you said, Zach, is what are teams willing to give up for this, and that's going to be a big part. But obviously there were a lot of big names, but those are just a couple, but obviously still a lot of big names on there.
Yeah, Tanner, it'll be interesting to just kind of see what happens going forward. We're going to step aside. We'll come back and talk about the NHL playoffs coming up. This is Beyond the Stats.
Welcome back to Beyond the Stats. As always, I'm Tanner Camp, alongside no one else, the one, the only, Mr. Zachariah Begley. Zach, it's getting closer and closer. The NHL is getting ready to start here. Key thing to note, just real quick, is that they will play some exhibition games before, but August 1st is the official days for the games. Zach, is there anything else that you either see on the schedule or that's really important? We know there's some round robin games between the top 4 teams in the East and West, which, as I'm looking at the standings, the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference are, of course, the Boston Bruins, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Washington Capitals, and the Philadelphia Flyers. And then in the Western Conference, the defending champions, St. Louis Blues, the Colorado Avalanche, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and the Edmonton Oilers. So they'll do a round robin to basically determine who's the number 1 and who's the number 2, and just kind of determine that. And then the actual regular format, which is a best of 5 series, that will get started here. But Zach, as you kind of look at the schedule, if you had to pick at least your teams in each conference who make like the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals, and then your Stanley Cup championship matchup, who do you got?
So, coming out of the West.
Okay.
Let me get this right. I think Edmonton makes it because they're at home. And then I think they play the Blues, the defending Stanley Cup champions. And I think the Blues make the Stanley Cup Finals out of the West. And then And then in the East, I have to go with the Bruins and probably the Capitals. I'm going to say Bruins and Capitals, and I think Bruins make it out of the East. So I think it's the number 1 seeds in both, just because of the way, kind of based on how we've had some long hiatus. And then I think the Bruins win in probably 6.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I like the predictions, and I like, again, for people that are not aware, Edmonton and Toronto are the 2 host cities for both sides. Both in the Eastern and the Western Conference, and then the championship will be played in Edmonton. So, and we kind of talked about this before we started the show, and, Edmonton and Toronto both have increased their chances just because of home ice, which does make a huge difference, but it just seemed right. They're both in Canada. They're not terribly far from each other. So at least that I'm looking at, I just don't see how you couldn't pick Boston. I mean, they have the best record in the NHL.
Yeah.
I was going to mention home and away stats, but wow, that doesn't matter.
Everything is away.
But no, I don't see how you couldn't pick Boston just with how well that they played, and especially before the NHL took stopped because of COVID. They were 7-3 in their last 10 games. Philadelphia is not a bad pick. I mean, of their last 10, they won 9 of them. Philadelphia is not a bad. I think I'm going Boston and Philadelphia. I just like Boston, by far the best team in the Eastern Conference and probably even in the NHL. But it's gonna be tight knit. But I'm gonna go Boston for that matchup. But again, really close. But again, Philadelphia might ride that momentum, and it depends on how they get there. If they just keep sweeping teams, then that obviously is going to make a difference. But now, so I got Boston and Philadelphia, but Boston winning the Eastern Conference, and then in the Western Conference, St. Louis Blues. I mean, 8-10 in their last 10 games, and it's defending Stanley Cup champions. I mean, that momentum itself rides. The fan in me really wants to see the Las Vegas Golden Knights go because of how young the franchise is. But again, I might even go Edmonton because that does make a huge difference. But you know what? As the only 2 40-win teams, I think I'm actually going to go with the top teams in the West. I'll go the St. Louis Blues and the Colorado Avalanche. I just kind of like that matchup. And actually, surprisingly, as I look, and again, I know home and away records don't matter, but actually Colorado did have a better record on the road. So maybe they play better when they're on the road. So this could be, a huge difference for them. And I part of me is really wanting to go with the Avalanche on this one. I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going that the Colorado Avalanche are going to surprise the Blues and face off against the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Finals. So it'd be the Bruins and Avalanche. And I just don't see how you can't pick Boston just of how I'm going Bruins and Avalanche in the Stanley Cup Final. Bruins win. I think it's going to be, it's either 6 or 7. I think, I'll go out on the limb and I'll go 7. with it. But that's, obviously the beautiful part of hockey, especially as unfortunate as it was that the season, had to be on hold for a minute. Anyone's fair game. I mean, to be honest, we could see the Toronto Maple Leafs because of their home. Heck, we could see the Chicago Blackhawks pull something incredible. I mean, a far stretch, but
I as a Blackhawks fan, I find that very hard just because it's in they're all the games are in Edmonton. That's the only thing.
That's true. But Zach, as we get ready to quickly close out this segment, is there anything in particular with this season that you're going to be looking for in terms of, do you think teams will be a little more aggressive? Do you think, is there anything that you're going to be keeping in? I know I'll be watching quite a bit because I'm curious as to, because the format hasn't changed too much. There are obviously some tweaks to accommodate for everything, but is there anything that you're going to kind of keep an eye on, or anything that you're looking for?
I think the teams that will do well are the teams that readjust to playing game level hockey again the fastest. So it's kind of down to I mean, we're making predictions, but it's gonna be hard because all these teams have been off for so long. It's gonna be hard to actually say yes, this is what's gonna happen, or no. So, and honestly, the finals could be Toronto at Edmonton.
Yeah.
And then Edmonton wins it all. That's totally possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reason I don't pick Toronto is because they're an 8 seed, so I see it harder to get through the bracket. Even if you're at home, that's a lot more work to get through the bracket than at a 1 or 2 seed. But yeah, I mean, it's going to come down to who plays the best early on.
No, Zach, I absolutely agree with you that I think whoever can build the momentum the quickest through the season will immediately have an advantage. Not a guarantee that they'll go all the way to the Stanley Cup final, but at least that's going to help build that momentum, whether it be for the top 4 teams in each of the round robin, whether it be the very last seed for each conference. But all I know is that, again, as sports hopefully start to slowly, come to life, we got the NBA coming up, we got the MLB coming up really soon here, the NHL. Hopefully we'll see some good action here. That is all that we have for you today. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Beyond the Stats. Just still working with some new social media stuff, so be sure to check that out. Beyond the Stats is on most podcasting sites. So again, if you could leave us some feedback, we really appreciate it. We enjoy doing this, and the only thing we want to do is do our absolute best to deliver to you. We're also on YouTube as well, so please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you do not miss out on any of our content.
This has been Beyond the Stats with Tanner and Zach.